Ba-dum bum, ba-dum bum, da-dun dun, da-dun dun. Phew. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Good morning, my darlings, my angels, my loves, my he's, she's, and theys. My name is Kayse Melone, and I'm so glad you're here. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff today. I've got some interesting YouTube videos lined up for us to look at. I've got some interesting articles lined up for us to look at. As many of you know, I got a lot of opinions about Christian nationalism and the rise of the religious right in this country. Is it a threat to our way of life? Yeah, I would say so. And I'm interested in how it kind of rose to power. I'm interested in the fact that religion and authoritarianism, they're like this. They go hand in hand. This is them scissoring. They are buddies, okay? Religion and authoritarianism is something that I'm trying to study and educate myself on more and more. It's something that other people have done interesting work on, which I would love to look at with you guys as well. But before we get started, a little bit of an update about what I've been doing. I took yesterday and today off of work from my 9 to 5. I work for a nonprofit. I run the marketing here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm very grateful for my job because I work with a really great team and they're good people. But, you know, it's still a 9 to 5 and we're all working in capitalism. So there's that. It is different because like my career has been in marketing and I've done marketing for all kinds of like companies over the past 7 or 8 or even 9 years almost. And for the large majority of my career, I've been working for profit for corporations. And that was like even more soul sucking, obviously, because my goal as someone in marketing was to make a sale so that some guy who owned the company could get richer. Do you know what I mean? And so that was a little bit soul sucking. And so transitioning to working in a nonprofit has been more impactful, more meaningful in that sense, because I'm a little bit removed from the direct transformation that we bring to people's lives here in the community here in Tulsa. But it's still, you know, it's still impactful, and driving impact is one of my core values. If you've never like defined your own personal core values, I highly encourage you to do so. Mine are adventure, curiosity, community, impact, and now I forgot my 5th one, of course. Is it growth? I don't think it's growth. I think it starts with a C. I had a lot that started with C. Curiosity, community, impact, adventure, and man, there's one more. Hold on. I've got it pulled up right here. I can do this. I know this. Oh, my personal core. There it is. Adventure, curiosity, community, impact, and peace. I didn't even know that. But I did that. I defined my core values like maybe over a year ago at this point. So maybe it's time for an upgrade. Maybe it's time for an update. I don't know. Hello, welcome viewers. Hi, good to see you here. We are talking about Christian nationalism today. If you don't know, I am very much an ex-evangelical Christian. I was raised deep in the Bible Belt here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I am now. And Tulsa, Oklahoma is very, very, very evangelical Christian. I had dinner with someone just in this past week who is kind of a leader in their church, and they have been tasked with teaching a class of 6 to 8 year olds in their church about the book of Revelation and Armageddon and the end of the world and all of the violence and nuclear war and the plagues that God unleashes upon the people of this world left behind after Jesus comes back and raptures the true believers of the Christian faith. Like, this is being taught currently in my community, in my hometown, in my city. And that's not a fringe belief here. Believing in the rapture and Armageddon is not a fringe belief where I'm at. It is like a main belief. It is a main part of my community's ideology. It's insane. It's honestly insane. And that's what I was raised to believe. I was a child. I was in that class of 6 to 8-year-olds believing that Jesus was going to come back and swoop up all of the Christians and take us into the sky, and we would have these what are called glorified bodies that would allow us to like teleport and fly and walk through walls and all of these, like it was very apocalyptic to grow up in that environment and believing that within our lifetime, for sure, the rapture is going to happen. Like every generation who believes in the rapture or Armageddon believes that it's their, it's going to be their generation, that they're the special ones that get to witness such a thing. And it's difficult now looking back at how I was raised. Oh, good morning, chatter. At how I was raised, and knowing that the people who were telling me those things, the people who were teaching me about Armageddon and the book of Revelation and the rapture and all of this stuff, like they were just doing their best. They weren't actively trying to lie to me. They were not in their mind, they weren't indoctrinating me, and I think the criticism of the Christian church, I think forgets that sometimes. And I try to remember that as much as I will fight back against, organized religion in general. But here in the United States, the rise of the religious right. Okay. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. It's interesting. A lot of the YouTube comments I get are, about how I shouldn't be talking about both religion and politics. And I push back against that. I have to talk about both religion and politics because my upbringing in the evangelical Christian church was 100% both obviously religious, like they were teaching me the religious practices. They were teaching me how to believe correctly about the Bible and God and Jesus. But it was also 100% political. Like the religious indoctrination here in the United States is political. It ends up influencing how people vote politically. And so unfortunately, as much as I would love the separation of church and state in the United States, in this country, as much as I would love for people to be able to worship freely however they want, obviously I want people to worship freely however they want, but if that then immediately translates to them dictating how everyone else should believe and live their lives, this is a conversation that blends religion and politics. And look, there's also the fact that I always say, like, I am technically an atheist, yes, but I don't want like an atheist country. I don't want a, the dictation that everyone needs to be atheist. I want a pluralist country. I want a secular country. I want a humanist country. And that means that everyone is able to worship how they want. I don't care what you believe. I will fight for your right to believe whatever the fuck you want. Congratulations. If you want to believe in a God, that's great. I don't, but that's fine if that's what you want to believe. And the reality is it is true that our beliefs about how the world works does affect how we think society is run. It is true that in a sense, the conversation of politics and religion can never be separated, if that makes sense. Because what we believe religiously, spiritually, or even a-religiously and a-spiritually, what we believe about the way this world works, the way reality works, it is going to affect how we think things should be run. The problem with where we're at right now is that the dominant ideology in this country is attempting to bulldoze over differing ideologies. And it doesn't matter what the dominant authoritarian ideology is, because all authoritarianism needs is an ideology. It could be an atheist ideology. I talk about this all the time. Authoritarianism just needs some kind of cultural movement to latch onto and use to prop up fascism in a country. We've seen this time and time again. It should honestly not be a surprise. Why the United States government thinks that, if they do, they might not. And actually, hold on. Okay. Why the United States government might think that they're the first ones to use religion to consolidate control and power, and that won't come and bite them in the ass in the end, as it has over and over and over again in human history, is beyond me. However, there are a lot of indicators. Hello, Twitch chatter, Male Rights USA on Twitch. Hello, good morning. There are a lot of indicators that suggest that maybe the people in power here in the United States, the super rich, the ultra rich, like tech bro oligarchy, there are some indicators that they are intentionally bringing about the end of Western civilization, which is something I've talked about before as well on my live streams. That kind of subversive, sinister movement is called Dark Enlightenment, kind of headed by a few of the top names, Peter Thiel. The like PayPal mafia, I think, is what we call them. Actually, let's kind of look at that, because I try so hard not to be doom and gloom. I try so hard to like maintain a grounded, kind of realistic point of view. As far as the direction of this country and how we should, like, especially because of how I was raised, the last thing I want to do is fall into another apocalyptic mindset, because I was raised to believe in Armageddon and Jesus' second coming and all of this insane shit. Oh, did I get a sub? Oh my God, thank you. You guys are so sweet. Thank you, Twitch. You guys are great. Oh my gosh. So, oh, and yeah, and anyone who subscribes, like, I'm still kind of setting up the Discord, the Kayse and Friends Discord, but I would love to see you in there. I'm excited to kind of like chat with you guys all day long, even when I'm off stream. Like, I know you just can't get enough of me. I know that you just want to talk to me all the time. It's okay. I know. But that is one of the perks of anyone who subscribes on Twitch or becomes a member on YouTube. The price is the same. It's $4.99 a month. I would love to see you in the Kayse and Friends Discord. So thank you, everyone who has subscribed on Twitch. You guys are my actual heroes. You guys are literally why I get up and do this every morning. But anyway, so yeah, so I try really hard not to fall into this apocalyptic mentality of end of the world, doom and gloom, all of this stuff. Again, because I was raised to believe in the end of the world, and to actively bring it about, and to actively be excited about the end of the world. Very insidious indoctrination. But that being said, like, there is still a very real issue with dark enlightenment. And again, these tech oligarchy bros apparently trying to bring about the end of the world as well, so that, because in economic downtimes, billionaires get fucking richer. And so a lot of people are like, why is Trump bringing, this economic hardship? Surely if he can't figure it out, surely at least someone in the White House has the economic background to understand that he is destroying the economy, right? Well, it's possible, maybe probable, to say that a lot of people in power want this economic downturn. They want a recession or another, Great Depression round 2 or what the fuck ever, because then they could get even fucking richer. So let's watch this. I wasn't really planning on this. I still want to get into Christian nationalism, but I haven't watched this video and I would love to watch it with you guys. Do let me know if like the sound is off or anything, and we will fix that.
It's one thing to criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal technologies and surveillance technologies that are highly invasive and used in war zones is something else entirely.
It's 2025. We're all kind of used to government surveillance. The idea that we're all being watched all the time and don't own our own personal data has become normalized. We're also used to the military spending vast amounts of our money on just a few giant defense contractors. But one tech company wants to change both of those things and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Check out Palantir shares surging 22% after the company cited a boom in demand for its AI software from the US government.
Isn't Palantir... Why does that make me think of Lord of the Rings? Isn't Palantir... Isn't that... This is so fucking nerdy of me. Isn't a Palantir like that orb thing that they that the hobbits like find in Lord of the Rings, and Gandalf kind of steals away from one of the hobbits? Obviously my lore is not that well defined, but anyway, that's just what it made me think of. Okay, let's keep watching.
And
we're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am.
Palantir, a tech company based here in Denver, claims they can revolutionize government systems with their data analysis software, newly powered by artificial intelligence. They've been hired by the Department of Defense, the FBI.
Okay, I have a lot of opinion, just like another pause, but I have a lot of opinions about artificial intelligence. I actually got really into it in 2023 after ChatGPT was released, I believe in November of 2022. And so 2023, I got really into artificial intelligence. I have some, like this book right here was a really good one. It's called Life 3.0 by Max Tegmark. And I was just really interested in it. And there's so many different conversations we can have about artificial intelligence. First of all, like the cat's out of the bag, it's not going anywhere, first of all. And really the best we can do as ethical participants in society is to figure out how to make AI as ethical as possible. And there are a lot of issues in how AI models are trained on essentially human biased content and material. And I know that like the AI companies are doing their best to not make their language learning models racist and sexist and all of the things. And I have used ChatGPT over the past year and a half, mostly like in large part for research, because I like going to ChatGPT first instead of Google for a large majority of things, and then fact checking based on what ChatGPT says. And so I have been really interested in AI. I do think that, I mean, we are in 1984 Orwellian surveillance state. Like, we are here. This is it. And it's only going to continue to increase. Surveillance is just happening. And again, like the cat's out of the bag, unless we have serious structural systemic transformation, surveillance and AI and this increase in technology is not going anywhere. And the best we can do as like everyday, consumers and people is try and be aware of that and protect our data as much as possible, but also accept that whatever we do online is not as safe as we'd like to think. Whatever we do online, again, there are a lot of ways we can protect our data. We can use VPNs. We can, just not put anything online. Obviously, that's not really an option for what I'm trying to do since I'm online every single day, live with you guys and chatting. Chatter says, I think you are combining Boromir and Paladin. Maybe I am. Maybe Palantir just sounds like it's something from a fantasy novel and I have no idea. But nevertheless, okay, let's keep going.
FBI, local police departments, and even the IRS and Wendy's to take in the information those organizations collect even more information, and use that data to draw conclusions.
It can be used to completely reconfigure organizations' ontology, its reality, what systems matter, what information matters, what processes matter, how they are structured, what biases are introduced at each of those stages.
We talked to a former Palantir employee, dug into decades of research, and listened to hours of Alex Karp's own words to unwrap the layers of Palantir's carefully cultivated sales pitch, how they capitalize on fear, uncertainty, and unrest.
I don't think in win-lose, I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances internally. Bad times are very good for Palantir because we build products that are robust, that are built for danger.
Let's rewind a little.
Palantir's story starts with one of the most effective things a company can have for sales: fear.
After the September
True.
11th attacks, the United States government began expanding surveillance both at home and abroad. This was, of course, a boon for the defense industry at large. Simultaneously, the Silicon Valley tech industry was growing fast and making people in a once obscure industry very, very rich, very, very quickly. Like the founders and executives at PayPal, known as the PayPal Mafia. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, and Peter Thiel.
Yep.
When PayPal was
That's
sold,
what I was saying.
Thiel had millions of dollars burning a hole in his pocket.
Also,
and
ew. This is who's destroying Western civilization? Like, I'm sorry. I try not to be a bully, but ew.
an idea. PayPal had developed systems for detecting fraud and crimes on the platform. What if they could use similar thinking to analyze the world at large? So Thiel pulled
Okay, I'm right about Chatter says I'm correct about a Palantir in Lord of the Rings. It's like a crystal ball that can be used for surveillance. Okay, thank you. I'm glad I was right. I'm glad my my nerd lore was accurate. So proud of me for that.
to build out a new company. One of the first hires was Thiel's Stanford Law School roommate, Alex Karp, who'd gone on after Stanford to get a PhD in not business or computer science or engineering, but neoclassical social theory. They named the company Palantir, after the Palantiri from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Hey!
In Lord of
Oh,
the
I'm
Rings-
so proud. I'm so proud of that. I am so proud that my nerd lore paid off there. Props to me. Claps for me. If you guys want to, applaud me for that, congratulate me for that, that's totally valid because that was fucking dope. Thank you. Thank you. I have Lord of the Rings down here. I won't pull it up. Wow, I'm great.
A Palantir stone is a magical object that allows its users to predict the future or to see what's going on in a remote location.
It was originally created by the elves. It was meant to be used for good purposes. It is potentially very dangerous.
We're such
technology.
nerds!
Very powerful.
I can't.
Long have you hunted me?
So that's Middle Earth, but what does Palantir do in
That's so funny.
regular Earth?
And what we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based research. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior.
Put simpler, they make software that makes it easier for their customers to collect and analyze data, and then act on that analysis, with and without AI. By 2013, 10 years after their founding, Palantir's client list included the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Marines, the Air Force, Special Operations Command, and more.
Did your company help to track and kill Osama bin Laden?
You know, we can never. I'll tell you, the closest thing to an answer is there are when you look at when you open the paper and look in the news about these kind of things, there's a 2/3 chance, depending on the country involved, that somehow my company was involved.
Fundamentally, the mission that is
That's so
pushed
creepy.
to employees is that we're solving the world's hardest problems and supporting Western institutions. That is the main driver of sort of this militaristic culture that is developed inside of Palantir.
If you do not feel comfortable
That's so
supporting
creepy.
the legitimate efforts
That's so creepy, you guys.
of America and its allies in the context of war,
don't join Palantir.
This entire message of like, we are the most lethal, we are the most able to surveil and process large amounts of data.
You have created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have
Hold on. Kill chain. Is that the idea of when they okay, I'm not gonna like shoot myself in the foot here and get this totally wrong. So let's see. Never mind.
Innocuous.
So how
something like
does
tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah blah blah. some term we're supposed to use.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, for me, it's the kill chain.
Kill chain sounds good.
Kill chain isn't an original term created by Palantir. It's the more general military verbiage for the series of decisions leading from identifying a target to taking their life. Palantir's contract added
That's not what I thought it was, so I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Their software and artificial intelligence to the kill chain.
It's quicker and better and safer and more violent.
It's tech that Juan helped market.
It reduces the distance you have to the problem, but when you're able to take a step back and really see all the narratives and how they were shaped and the actual application of these technologies, your whole world starts falling apart, which is something that, definitely happened to me.
Juan didn't leave Palantir entirely for ethical reasons. He just got another job. But the reason he eventually started speaking out against Palantir came after watching the Israeli invasion of Gaza following the October 7th attacks. Palantir has contracts with the Israeli Defense Forces. The exact nature of the contracts is opaque, intentionally, but there is evidence to suggest that Palantir's artificial intelligence tech was used for selecting targets in Gaza. CARP doesn't mind the controversy. In fact, it's part of the marketing.
Palantir will even pick up the projects that other companies rejected for political reasons.
We are very comfortable being unpopular.
CARP doesn't think controversy will lose Palantir customers.
Whatever is pissing them off, they're still buying the product.
Wendy's hired Palantir to help with their supply chain. Palantir works with health insurance companies to build AI for denials management to protect revenue.
Do you want Palantir's AI making decisions about what care is covered for you and your loved ones?
They also do business with for-profit hospitals, major investment banks, and even other defense contractors. In 2024, Palantir brought in nearly $2.9 billion in revenue, 55% of which came from government sources, with the vast majority being American. So let's look at their pitch to the American government. Last year, Palantir CTO Sham Sankar put out a presentation and white paper called The Defense Reformation. He cites the Last Supper, which was a secretive 1993 meeting between defense industry executives and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Over a dozen companies walked in, and only a few walked out. That dinner is often cited as the origin of our consolidated military-industrial complex.
And to me, I think this was the definitive moment that kicked off the financialization of defense. From that point forward, it became all about buybacks and dividends and leverage ratios.
Criticizing the financialization of the defense industry, calling out stock buybacks, that doesn't sound like a defense executive. That sounds more like the exact argument about the defense industry that we have made before.
I think what's interesting to me about Palantir is how they co-opt the language of revolution.
But Sankar's
that's what I was just thinking. And that makes me think of how, like, when I was getting really into AI and I read a few books about it, I tend to be super optimistic. Like, I am just a almost like annoying optimist about the future and humanity and all of these things. And AI seems like this perfect opportunity for us to design a more equitable society, for us to design. It's like it comes at a time in human history when all of these hierarchies that I talk about all the time, white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism, organized religion, and the way that those hierarchies are by nature exploitative, and by nature they prey on the vulnerable, and we have this wealth inequality that keeps growing and growing, and we have these social issues that are they are important but are honestly more of a distraction, but for us to squabble amongst ourselves as the peasantry, like as the working class. so that we don't band together, so that we're more concerned about pronouns than power and who actually has the power, which is this ultra rich microcosm of people on this planet. And I think about how, AI and the internet and technology has there's two ways to go about this. Like, on one hand, it really has allowed, I'll start on the other side. On one hand, we all are aware of the algorithmic echo chambers where we're all drawing our information from, where we're all getting our news from, and it is creating these almost like masturbatory chambers where we just keep getting more and more of what we pay attention to and what we give our focus to. These algorithms are like predatorily designed to keep us on these platforms as much as possible. And on the other hand, okay, the internet and AI and these algorithms have allowed us to globally connect to people who we otherwise would never have met. Like, you guys, us interacting right now, like, this is allowing us to come together. We're watching this YouTube video together. I'm watching you guys chat. You're listening to me rant about Lord of the Rings. Okay. And we love to see that. But, and of course, this goes back to how the internet is essentially, it is neither good nor bad inherently. It is only exacerbating human nature, what's already good and what's already bad about human nature. And so I try so hard to stay grounded in reality, but it's easy for me to be like, oh, with AI and the internet and this global connectivity coming at a time in in human evolution, at the same time that so many of us are awakening to and starting to recognize these patterns of hierarchical control, these systems, these institutions, even these ideologies that are generally harmful. And we're starting to recognize all of these things at the same time that global connectivity and the internet and all of this technology is available. So I so badly want the internet and artificial intelligence to be used to design a more equitable society. It's so fucking possible. It is so fucking possible to use these tools to make sure that enough people get food and shelter. It is so possible to use these tools to ethically distribute the natural resources of this planet without A, exploiting people for profit, or B, decimating the natural landscapes so that we don't have any natural resources left. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I want that so badly. Like, I wish I understood more about, like, I'm glad we're learning about Palantir and I'm glad we're having these discussions, but I wish so badly that I could I had more of an in the AI industry, because I know that there are some like organizations and AI companies that are founded on ethical principles or sustainable principles. I do recognize that, but it's so like it's so concerning to see like this video that we're watching and just know that the way history goes and the way human nature works is it's probably just going to end up George Orwellian, and even more exploitative, and we're just going to continue exacerbating and catalyzing the fucked upness of the human condition, so that AI, instead of being this, this democratic and ethical society, is just going to make the one we have even fucking worse. Like, that is my concern, and this video we're watching is not helping, but with that in mind, let's get back to it.
Argument did work on somebody, Uncle Sam. The Defense Innovation Board, an advisory group within the Department of Defense, cited Sankar's presentation multiple times in their 2024 report on why the DoD needs to divert more of their budget to emerging technology. That's giving money to Palantir. There's a reason Palantir just replaced Ford Motors in the S&P 100 in the months after Trump was elected. The Trump administration is an ideal customer for what Palantir is selling. First, there are many former Palantir employees sprinkled across the Trump administration, from inside Doge to foreign policy advisors to high-level technology appointees. And Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, heavily invested in the company, is also heavily invested in President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was a major campaign donor to both. Then the stated goal of Doge is to streamline and combine government data, which is exactly what Palantir does.
The ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, Karp is loving it.
Disruption, in the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. It's like we're expecting to see really unexpected things and to win.
And what is winning, according to Palantir? This is CTO Shyam Sankar in 2021.
Turning to government, we continue to advance our mission of becoming the US government's central operating system as we extend our footprint across defense, healthcare, and civilian agencies.
The government's operating system. They want everything to funnel through Palantir. Palantir already has contracts with the IRS, going through taxpayer data to save auditors time by finding the easiest audits to pursue. Now, Wired reports, Doge will likely hire Palantir to create unified software for the entire IRS, a mega API that would allow anyone with access to view and possibly alter all IRS data in one place. That's all of your financial information. And they have multiple contracts with the Department of Health and Human Services, including nearly $100 million to support HHS's core administrative data and applications, to manage, ingest, and access data securely across business domains. HHS's core responsibility is Medicare and Medicaid. That's control over millions of Americans' health records and their access to healthcare. So what does it mean for one contractor to have all that power, data, and taxpayer money as profit, especially as AI gets involved?
As we kind of increasingly live in a simulated world, we lose touch with reality and the human decisions that matter, and we move closer towards governance by algorithm, not only made by decisions of automated artificial intelligence systems, which is a problem, but more importantly, subject to decisions made by the people who are influencing these AI systems and creating them in order to fulfill an agenda for whatever their profit-seeking or control-seeking objectives are. And when I see Doge kind of going into every agency and addressing the IT department first, I see it as an opportunity to try to change reality itself.
But so what? Why am I telling you all of this? Palantir has no...
Okay, chatters. Hello, chatters who are joining. Some of you are talking about something interesting I want to bring up. Okay, so someone said that we're in a monopoly now. No one competes anymore. It's all about stock price now. And someone else also talked about how I want an equally and fairly distributed I want to equally and fairly distribute the world's resources, but doesn't want anything Orwellian. And they're like, okay, ladies. So, okay, couple of things here. Like, as I said earlier, the cat's out of the bag. This technology is here. It's not going anywhere unless some serious, like, I'm talking, worldwide kind of structural or systemic change happened, which could be possible. That is a reality. It could look like a million different things, but, I'm certainly not going to actively try and bring that about. We are being surveilled, first of all, like we are. There is a level of surveillance that I do think is healthy for society, like so that we can, catch criminals. But of course, yeah, like is it the Minority Report when they arrest people before crimes are committed? Okay, I don't know what the movie is called, but you understand the concept. Arresting people based on their behavior patterns and based on essentially their thought patterns. That's a little too Orwellian, okay? It's you're going to find this a lot when you're interacting with me. I'm not very much interested in extremes. I'm not interested in a society that has absolutely no awareness of what's going on in the interactions of its peoples. That is how terrible things and like, I don't want to say crime because that's too charged of a word, but essentially crime festers, okay? If we're not watching each other at all, that is unhealthy. And I also don't want too much surveillance, okay? Like, there is a sweet spot, and it is okay to say that, all right? Like, I understand that people value their privacy, but to a certain extent, like, you only have a right to privacy if you're not a terrible person in my book. And the other thing is about, what was it? What did I just say? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, we're in a monopoly now. No one competes anymore. It's all about the stock price now. Yes. Okay. That is so funny to me when people criticize like socialism or communism or any kind of non-capitalist society. They're like, but competition is good for us. Like, bro, there's no competition now. We have these monopolies, these fucking top 1% because they're not letting anyone compete. How many ma and pa stores do you know of? How many ma and pa stores are getting shut the fuck down because of Trump's stupid tariffs? We're seeing it all over the news. Competition already doesn't exist. Do you understand? Like, all capitalism did was allow a small percentage of people get super fucking rich, buy out all of the smaller stores, and we ended up with BlackRock, the corporate conglomerate that is like this nameless, faceless entity that's controlling your every move and your every purchase. Is that really what capitalists want? Like, congratulations, we might have started out in a capitalist society with competition, but the nature of a hierarchical institution like that means that people are on the bottom and people are on the top. That is what a hierarchy is. And the more that disseminates and the more that concept gains power, that the distance between them grows. Okay, this isn't out of fucking left field here. We've seen this time and time again. We saw it in feudalism. Okay, and it's so funny to me when capitalists are like, oh well, capitalism obviously is the answer because it was better than feudalism. Like, bro, if capitalism was better than feudalism, you're so fucking certain. You're 100% certain that capitalism is the best we can do. Like, that's it. We've reached it. This is the utopia that we wanted. And then they'll come back and they'll be like, well, obviously, like, people are taking advantage of capitalism and it's not there's not enough like checks on the monopolies. Like, that is my fucking point. Yes, people are taking advantage of capitalism because that is the nature of it, and we can do better. So yeah, there is, thank you for pointing that out, chatter. Like, all small businesses are being shot down. Truer words have never been spoken. Why am I okay with extreme leftism? Someone asked. I literally just fucking said, because the nature of capitalism is exploitative, and it's not, look, capitalism, again, we can be grateful for what capitalism did, which was do away with feudalism. When the noble aristocracy owned all of the land and the peasantry didn't have any chance to be a part of the middle class until merchants, the rise of the merchant class started. And it's when the rise of the merchant class started that we actually have to thank for overthrowing feudalism, right? So eventually we got there, but feudalism by nature for so long was just like a different form of slavery, okay? And we're still kind of in a different form of slavery in capitalism. We got here too. We can thank capitalism for being better than feudalism. Like, that's great. Capitalism did give a lot more people opportunity, but it is ignorant to say that it is the best possible version of society, that we cannot do something better, and that it's not at the end of its life cycle. Like, feudalism reached the end of its life cycle in human evolution. Do you understand how we are continuing to grow and learn and evolve? Okay, and so now we are here in at the end of the life cycle of capitalism. That is why we call it late stage capitalism. We're in the end of it. We are going to have something better. Do you understand? Like, it's, yes, hashtag morning rage. Hi, welcome to the show. I go on rants. Good morning. Yeah, it is 7:44 a.m. where I'm at, and I'm on fire already. But okay. I have no respect for Christian who think they should and enjoy capitalism, especially when they piss about the price of eggs. Yes, correct. We are going to get into Christian nationalism here in a bit. I definitely want to talk about that. My company takes out loans for investments and gives most money we make to the top 10 stockholders as bonuses. It's a cash extraction machine. We could buy our upgrades. We make enough. Look, you guys, it's just played out. In post-capitalist societies, you will see socialism or barbarism. First of all, I would love to see socialism. I would love to see socialism. I would love to see socialism. That would be great. Cool. Okay, let's go. You know, like, we are on our way to barbarism. I mean, look. If you think that the transition from feudalism to capitalism, which again, even capitalists agree, was a healthier way for us to build a society, like even capitalists like that we transitioned away from feudalism, right? Obviously, because they fucking love their capitalist daddy machine, you know, life giver. Give me more, daddy. Give me more. If you think that transition was smooth and peaceful and nonviolent, like, you would be wrong. So there is in order for us to get to something better, like, I do not advocate for violence in any way, shape, or form, but I also think it is ignorant to not recognize that sometimes violence is inevitable, okay? I think it's important for us to recognize when we're in a time of, like where we're at in the social cycle of, okay, we need to be peaceful, and when people think there is a need for violence. Again, I'm not advocating for violence ever, but it's just, you know, like, let's be grown. Let's be serious about what we're talking about here. I learned something new from each of my from each of your videos. I am grateful for the information you bring up. That's so sweet. I'm glad we can learn and grow and evolve together. So I'm admitting the leftist is inherently violent. First of all, no, that is not what I said at all. That is not what I said at all. Second of all, if you think that the religious right, that capitalism is inherently nonviolent, that is laughable. That is absolutely false. I don't know what's in your, genetically modified food to make you think that the right is not built on violence, built on exploitation. That is so wrong. The left doesn't want to do violence. I agree. The left does not want to do violence, okay? If anything, the left is reacting to the violence of the right, the instigator of the violence. Okay, let's finish this video, and then we're going to talk about Christian nationalism, because now I'm all fired up.
No problem being seen as Big Brother, as all-powerful, as lethal even.
We're at the brink of using these technologies potentially to run our government, to run our battlefields and our personal lives. Using artificial intelligence as a sort of panacea solution across our federal departments, and especially when they're, again, wielded by people with a very distinct agenda, puts everyone at risk.
It almost feels like that's been the plan all along. Here's co-founder Peter Thiel in 2010 at Libertopia, a libertarian conference, speaking about tech companies and government.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
And here's Alex Karp in 2009 on civil liberties with regards to Palantir's work.
The central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at the very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution.
One co-founder openly wants to use the power of the tech industry to affect politics. The other wants his company to have oversight over how the government data they're paid to handle is used. And the founders of Palantir will retain control in the company no matter what, through an obscure ownership structure. Their Class F shares grant them 49.99% of voting power, even if they collectively own as little as 6% of the company.
At the start of this journey, I was extremely afraid for the repercussions of this writing, of speaking out, but now I'm like, even more convinced that this is absolutely necessary.
We can't replace our current broken system with an even more broken one. And we can't let the worst people in Silicon Valley become our government.
It's not about whether you're actually at risk for speaking out or not. It's just the idea that somebody's watching you is enough to push people into silence.
Thank you so much for watching.
Okay, that was a good video. What are you guys talking about? What did I miss? The left seeks to do progress with nonviolence, but like someone who is in a bar who decides to beat you up, we will defend ourselves. Well said, chatter. Well said. It doesn't matter how civil you can be. You can be so civil, yet be bad faith within the rules of civility, a society that will not accept certain boundaries. I found out everything about who the elites are. They play both sides of the government. Yeah, the elites play both sides of the government. That's why the Democratic Party is called controlled opposition. I go back and forth on even just supporting like Bernie Sanders or AOC, who are very much the best options in the current political system for supporting a new and better society. But at the same time, they're still I'm still trying to formulate where I'm at with transforming something entirely new in this political party. But all I know for fucking certain, is that Christian nationalism has no place in my preferred society. Christian nationalism is like the scariest thing to me. Not that I'm scared of shit, but Christian nationalism is one of the biggest threats in the United States because it is infusing some deep-seated core beliefs and, more importantly, fears with how people are being manipulated, how the masses are being manipulated from the church pulpit, from the religious leaders who are telling their congregation members how to vote, whether overtly or more subtly. I remember getting told in Bible class about how Obama was potentially the Antichrist, like how he might be bringing about the fucking end of the world, just essentially because, I was definitely raised in an environment with, how you might say, with white supremacist undertones for sure, no doubt about that. But, okay, let's see. There's so much with the anti-Christian bias efforts in the Trump administration that is just honestly hilarious, because you can't persecute an ideology or a group of people or a demographic of people who are in power. That's insane. The Trump administration has ordered the State Department employees to report on any instances of coworkers displaying anti-Christian bias as part of its effort to implement a sweeping new executive order on supporting employees of Christian faith working in the federal government. Oh, boo-hoo! Christians in the United States government having no power and being discriminated against. That's a joke. Chatter says, I remember people talking about Obama like that. That was scary to witness. Yeah, I know. And I was only 16. So like, did I really have any, of my own thoughts? That's debatable, but I still feel guilty that I hated Obama so much because that's what I was raised to hate. I was scared of Obama. I thought Obama was like this harbinger of the end times. It's crazy. Social capitalism is where I am at. We shouldn't poison water for profit, well regulated. If we all pay health insurance premiums plus Medicare, if you did a national health insurance, we'd all pay less. Yeah, no, don't get me started on national health insurance. Universal health care is the basic fucking minimum, the bare fucking minimum. And all of the capitalists in this country are getting actively fooled. Y'all are getting actively brain rotted to believe that a private Medicare system is the best option for you. Well, good luck. Good luck. Go ahead. I can't do it. The department, according to a copy of an internal cable obtained by Politico, will work with an administration-wide task force to collect information involving anti-religious bias during the last presidential administration. Anti-Christian bias, I can't. That's not a real thing. Obviously, I have anti-Christian bias. Obviously, it is a real thing. My point is like, it's not when so many Christians have positions of power, when so many Christians have more resources, they're not discriminated against. Discrimination is built on the inherent lack of power or a lack of resources, material resources. It's insane. It's insane. For Rubio to judge what is un-Christ-like is a joke. Yeah, exactly. This is all a joke. Male Rights USA was also told the Antichrist, or Obama was the Antichrist as well, but gave up on it. Wow, Male Rights USA on Twitch. So that means you question your beliefs, and you were probably hearing around you that you were told that Obama was the Antichrist, but you questioned it and you pushed back against it. I'm very proud of you. That's very adult of you. That's very grown. It's very Handmaid's Tale-esque. Yes, it is, said one State Department official who was granted anonymity because the individual was not allowed to speak openly. Okay, and see, I like how this says, it is based on the flawed premise that the department harbors anti-Christian bias to begin with, and warning it could create a culture of fear as the administration pushes employees to report on one another. Like, that is so fucked up. That is so fucked up to me. I cannot do it. What else did I have for this? Yeah, this is Donald's DEI. Isn't that funny? And this was last week, wasn't it? 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Eradicating anti-Christian bias. Oh my goddess. Oh my goddess. What do you think about Christians who use the Bible and says it justifies spanking kids? I was spanked because of the Bible. I was told that the rod of correction was fucking valued above my own personal comfort. Like, I can't. It happens. What do I think about Christians who use the Bible to spank kids? I think that they are looking for any excuse to participate in violence. And honestly, look, I'm obviously not a parent. Maybe it's not obvious. I'm not a parent. But if you need to resort to violence to raise your child, like, maybe that's not the right move. Okay, that's going to be as nice as I'm going to put it, honestly. Christianity is the Antichrist. LOL. LOL. You guys are funny. But it does say that in the Bible, babe. Let me be crystal fucking clear. The Bible is a book. I do not believe that the Bible is divinely inspired, that it is absolute truth, or that it's even moral. I don't care what the Bible says. Saying that something is in the Bible is not a valid logical argument for me because I don't care what it says. All right? So, and I get this all the time. Like, when I say I don't believe that Jesus is 100% the only Son of God or whatever. And then people say, well, the Bible says so. Like, the Bible is a book that I don't believe matters. I don't care what the Bible says. So there's that. I think I had a video or two about Christian nationalism. Oh, yeah, here we go. Legion Miller is so great. So great. How do you verify Satan did not inspire the Bible writers? How do I verify Satan did not inspire the Bible writers? Because Satan is based on the premise of what is written in the Bible. There are actually arguments made to say that Satan / the devil / Lucifer was added as the divine opponent to the benevolent God Yahweh later on after the Bible was already written. But just for the sake of argument, let's say that Satan / Lucifer / the devil was always written in the Bible. I think that maybe if a character in a book, you're suggesting that a character in a book's mythology wrote the book's mythology is what you're suggesting. I don't even know what to do with that question. That's insane. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be rude, but what proof do I have that Satan didn't inspire the books of the Bible, the writers of the Bible? Maybe because it is based on their works that he exists, whether intentionally originally or added later. Chicken and egg kind of situation, I guess. Good goddess. John testified concerning him. He cried out saying, "This is the one I spoke about when I said who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me." Are you, babe, are you quoting scripture at me to convince me of something? Did I not just say I don't care what the Bible says? I believe he did if the devil was, say, like, he wouldn't have tried to corrupt God's word. You guys, the Bible, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not here to actively try and convince anyone. I am. Maybe I do need to start actively saying I'm trying to deconvert people because this is fucking insane. Lucifer is a Latin added word. Yeah, that's what I thought. There are plenty of arguments to be used at. There are plenty of arguments that Satan / the devil / Lucifer was added later to the mythology of Christianity. Trigger warning. Yeah, this is all triggering, of course. The serpent religion was created by Satan. I need to move on. We're going to move on. I have to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to put this video on and then we're going to talk about it. Okay? We're moving on.
Mother Jones just dropped an expose called "To Understand J.D. Vance, You Need to Meet the Theo Bros." And we're going to unpack that today. Theo Bros are a young group of church leaders who create content aimed at vocally and openly pushing a Christian nationalist agenda and share many of the same talking points of VP candidate J.D. Vance. Compared to these men, the religious right of the Reagan era seems like child's play. They call for a government run according to Christian beliefs, believe the 19th Amendment should be repealed and votes should be made by men to represent the will of his entire family, and favor doing away with the Constitution entirely in favor of a system of justice built around the 10 Commandments. Where did this movement come from? How big of a threat do they actually pose? And what in the literal Handmaid's Tale is going on around here? But first, a palate cleanser. Hi, I am so sorry to break it to you, but the holidays are somehow coming up so fast, and they get busy. And the last thing I want to do in between cooking a turkey for my loved ones is prepping goopy, all-natural food for my dog. Oh, this is Moira. Moira is perfect in every way, but she's also high maintenance, skin allergies. And she's a bulldog, so she's just generally a very goopy girl. So feeding her food that's good for her and easy to prep and clean is a must. Moira loves Sundays for dogs, and so do I. Sundays is dog food that works with your life. No defrosting, no prep, no cleanup, just healthy and easy. Sundays is 100%
I'm sorry I left you guys on an ad.
Ingredients that you can
it's terrible.
Pronounce, and probably these Theo Bros and J.D. Vance and others with political power. But I wanted to delve into their ideology more. So yeah, I read some manifestos and watched.
If the Bible is just a book, it would have flaws and would have been disproven all these years later. Babe, it has actively been debunked over and over again. You know what? Maybe we'll do a Bible debunking stream sometime, because honey bunches of oats, there is some validity to some of the historical events that are recorded in the Bible, but as this supposed divine law, like, babe, you're joking. I'm going to be nice and not get into it right now for your sake.
Watch some podcast episodes in service of all of us. I sacrificed myself and my algorithm, okay? So we'll get into that. But first, a quick overview of some key players and how this is all interconnected. There's Douglas Wilson, a 71-year-old boomer pastor in Idaho whose generation has been largely rejected by these Theo Bros as too soft. But Wilson has been accepted because of his effective use of social media to say the things others are too scared to say. His work and books helped lay the groundwork for this movement. For example, Fidelity, How to Be a One-Woman Man, in which he wrote that sex cannot be egalitarian. The man penetrates, conquers, colonizes plants, while the woman receives, surrenders, accepts. He also wrote the 1996 book Southern Slavery as It Was, in which he argued that slavery wasn't actually that bad. It was a mutually beneficial relationship filled with benevolent masters. He also promotes the idea that men, as heads of households, should cast the votes, and that women's suffrage was a mistake. In July this year, Wilson shared a stage at the National Conservatism Conference with, among others, Senators Josh Hawley, Ron Johnson, and Mike Lee, as well as J.D. Vance. He also shared a stage at another conference with Donald Trump himself. Then there's Joel Webbin, a 41-year-old pastor with an extensive social media presence who has pointed to Douglas Wilson as inspiration, where before he lived quietly in fear of being canceled and persecuted. When he saw Wilson doing this stupid online, he was like, oh my God, I can do that too. So now he preaches and posts about how Taylor Swift single-handedly caused the declining birth rate and how women should never be loud.
Oh my God.
For men, don't be weak. For women, don't be loud. Like a golden ring in the snout of a pig, so too it is with a woman who is not modest.
He also says Africans should be blamed for the transatlantic slave trade because they helped the Europeans capture other Africans. Cool. His followers include 33-year-old Brian Salve, a Christian recording artist and a pastor in Utah. He regularly argues that women's primary function is to have babies, and was thrilled about Vance's comments about childless cat ladies who are miserable, a sentiment that clearly mirrored his and his fellow Theo Bros' fears about birth rates, families, and women's roles. He's also a raging anti-Semite. Then there's Josh Abatoy, executive director of the American Reformer, a favorite Theo Bro publication. Not only has Abatoy been involved with what he's called strategic planning sessions for Project 2025, his publication, American Reformer, has an editor and publisher named Chris Buzzkirk, a man who co-founded the Rockbridge Network, a secretive right-wing donor group that also counts Leonard Leo and Peter Thiel among its ranks. Another co-founder of the Rockbridge Network? J.D. Vance. And then there's Stephen Wolfe, who wrote a Doug Wilson-endorsed book called The Kayse for Christian Nationalism in 2022, which has become a bit of a manifesto for the movement. In that book, Wolfe espouses the idea that America as a nation should be a specific set of historically connected people, specific people though, not a hodgepodge of beliefs and ethnicities. And this idea has been adopted resoundingly by the Theo Bro movement.
A nation is not an economic zone. It's not merely a set of moral principles. It has to be at some level, at the most basic level, it has to be people in place, a particular people, and multiculturalism is not your friend.
So that when J.D. Vance got on stage at the RNC this summer and said that America...
That's so stupid. Like, it's not even just immoral and wrong, and it's incorrect, since I remember growing up, even in the Bible-based private school, Christian fundamentalist private school I went to as a kid, as a teenager, it was highly valued that the United States was a melting pot. Like, multiculturalism was celebrated. I mean, you know, not that it's been perfect, but the idea of only wanting one culture, one kind of people is just, it's stupid. It's stupid. You know what? There is only one kind of people. They're called humans. There's one kind of people. And it's insane to me because we all have 23andMe. Like, we've all done 23andMe, right? And like, I am the whitest, blondest bitch on the block, but I have Native American heritage. I have East Asian heritage. I have South African heritage. Do you understand? Like, it's so fucking stupid to say that we only want one nationality or ethnicity or whatever. That's not feasible at all. It's not feasible. It doesn't sound good. Like, what you want our culture? You want our culture to be hamburgers and hot dogs? You want our culture to be the most lack of seasoning, bland, stupid food? Gross. Ew. It's so stupid. I cannot. I think we conservatives warn about this stuff. You're missing the point of the warning. You would agree if you understand what people are trying to prevent. What is trying to be prevented is a situation like Europe, where countries are losing their cultural identity like you have in the UK. Bro, honey bunches of oats. You think that white people in the United States has a cultural heritage? You think we have, or a cultural identity? You think we have a cultural identity? Let me explain something to you. When whiteness as a concept, as an ideology essentially was formed, it intentionally erased any cultural ties that existed. Okay. And what's fucked up is white supremacy and the African slave trade violently and immorally stripped away the cultural heritage of the black people that we brought over to be slaves. Okay. But it also, not as violently and not as immorally, it also stripped away the cultural identity of white people. I don't have a cultural identity other than, again, hamburgers and fucking hot dogs. Okay. The cultural identity you're talking about is non-existent. It doesn't exist. First of all, this country is only a couple hundred years old. Second of all, if you want to talk about cultural identity tied to the land itself, that's not you and me. That's not you and me. And I have a Cherokee tribal card. Okay, I am technically part of the Cherokee tribe because I'm in Oklahoma. We all have it here. But even I don't claim to have ties to a cultural heritage of this land because I'm a white woman. I'm a blonde white woman. I'm the whitest woman. I'm white, right? And whiteness doesn't have a cultural cohesion. Whiteness the idea was to strip away the cultural identity of white people so that they more closely identified with whiteness and the supposed inherent power that comes with that. I mean, not that obviously, like, there is inherent power in being white in the United States, but not like on a biological level. And so the idea that we're trying to, I understand that you're referring to what is called the Great Replacement, which is this idea that minorities and people of color in the United States are replacing whiteness or white people in the United States. And that is propaganda to make you afraid of people of color and to make you hate them. It is not founded on anything realistic. We don't have a culture to erase because it has already been erased by the white supremacist movement. Do you understand? Like, am I just talking out of my ass here? White culture is just code for superiority complex. Yeah, well said, honey. The black people wanted to be a part of the new culture. They love Christianity after finding God. Even now they are free, but choose to worship God and not go back to their old culture. That is so... What breaks my heart is how sinister and insidious it is that such a narrative has made it into the minds of so many people. I cannot... I feel like I need like some space from how like heartless that kind of was. I know we're all just doing our best, but that was dark. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on because I said so.
America is not just an idea, it is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. It is, in short, a nation.
But America is not just an idea. It is a group of people with a shared history and a common future. It is, in short, a nation. Now, it is part of that tradition, of course, that we welcome newcomers. But when we allow newcomers into our American family, we allow them on our terms.
He was dog whistling for all to hear in order to ignite the Christian nationalist base that would immediately recognize their ideology in his words. Stephen Wolfe popularized the tenets of this form of Christian nationalism in his book, but another actor, William Wolfe, no relation, has taken it to government and written a literal manifesto. William Wolfe served in the Trump administration both as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and Director of House Affairs at the Department of State. He's also connected to the Heritage Foundation, of course, and he got a personal shout out from Chief Project 2025 architect Russell Vogt on Twitter, who said he was proud to work with William Wolfe on scoping out a sound Christian nationalism. Wolfe also contributed to a manifesto often cited by other Theo Bros released in May 2023 called The Statement on Christian Nationalism and the Gospel. The key authors of the manifesto are listed as James Silberman and Dusty Devers. Dusty Devers is a state senator in Oklahoma. Silberman is Devers' executive assistant. Besides William Wolfe, Joel Webbin, the Theo Bro who thinks Taylor Swift is the devil, is also listed as a contributing editor. I read the statement on Christian nationalism and the gospel word for word, so you don't have to. It really clearly lays out the entire premise behind at least their definition of Christian nationalism. Basically, God, the Christian God specifically, should be the highest ruler in all aspects of life, and everything that controls human life should answer first and foremost to this Christian God. God has created spheres of influence over life that should all answer to him, but that should never overlap. The church should provide salvation. The family should provide guidance and education, through the man, of course, and the government should provide God-honoring justice. It states, "We affirm that civil authorities are God's servants of justice who must know who their master is and what he requires of them. We affirm that all human authorities, including civil, possess authority only as it has been delegated to them by God, and accordingly are accountable to him to serve the people as revealed in his word." They also state, "We affirm that God has armed civil authorities with the sword of justice to promote citizens' welfare without partiality by 1, writing and enforcing just laws that are a terror to those who do evil, 2, defending and approving those who do good, and 3, avenging victims of crimes with speedy justice and proportional punishments for evildoers." Like, what in the medieval times kind of language is that? However, that being said, after reading this manifesto and immersing myself in this Theo Bro social media landscape, I think that...
Okay, so that language that she just talked about that speaks to what Christian nationalism stands for is something I talk about a lot. And it is this idea that I was raised in the evangelical Christian church. It is the idea that I talk a lot about how the premise of Christianity and needing Jesus to save you from your own sins and from the eternity of hell is fear-based. It is based on fear. It is based on the premise of being afraid of how you're going to spend your afterlife, okay? And I talk about how even in my upbringing as a child, I was being indoctrinated with the idea that we are living in a physical world, yes, but that we need to always be mindful of the spiritual warfare going on with the verses. It says with the principalities and powers of the air, okay? And I was told that there are these spirits and demonic forces that like hover over parts of the world and influence the leaders and et cetera, et cetera. Now, the problem with that is, again, it sets up this idea that politics is not just a place where people can come together and discuss ethics and come to a sane conclusion together. It is the idea that it is a ground for spiritual warfare. It is this place where you have to defeat the enemy for the sake of your God, for the sake of, you know, your stance in your afterlife. Do you understand? So there is this really like sinister nature to how evangelical Christianity poses political discussions. And the Christian nationalist movement is exacerbating that. It is profiting from this fear-based ideology of Christianity that is inherently based on being afraid of for your afterlife, being afraid that people are taking your your jobs and your rights and your culture. Like what culture? Someone in the chat was saying that there are different cultures depending on where you are at in Europe, like in Russia and Poland and in Germany and all of these things. Like, yes, it's not to say that white people have never had a culture. I'm talking about here in the United States, culture was systematically erased for both people of color and white people so that people would identify with their skin tone more than the traditions passed down to them, okay? So that hierarchy could be established between the people who looked differently. Does that make sense? Like it's part of the colonialist, imperialist, fascist narrative to not have our own they don't want multiculturalism. Okay, but this goes back decades and decades and centuries. Beer culture, barbecue culture. Great. Yeah, great. We have fucking barbecue. The nastiest. I can't. Oh, cool. We have NASCAR. Dope. Great. I'm so glad we substituted our ancient heritage for fucking NASCAR and Formula One. Cool. Great. Stoked.
The motivation behind this movement is this. These people are scared of the same things we all are. They have a sense that the world is chaos, that things feel less safe now, that there is strong division in this country, and that this country's future feels very uncertain. They're also being inundated by way more information than our brains were meant to intake daily through social media, just like the rest of us. They're also feeling like just a consumerist cog in a capitalist machine. And their solution to this is to turn to God, which they believe is all-knowing and all-powerful and has a plan. And that makes sense. I wish I could turn my brain off and think, well, there's a higher power with a plan. No need to have daily existential meltdowns. God knows what's happening. I just have to follow what he wrote in this book. And so they cling desperately to what's written in this old book. And to them, the solution is, okay, if I can get everyone on board with this book, then I never have to interact with people with different beliefs or cultural practices than me. If we close down our borders and disallow anyone who's different to come in, everything would be better. So, of course, to them, immigration and globalization would be the #1 threat to humanity because they cannot handle being faced with differences. And their solution is not to work towards building a nation that embraces differences. It is instead to build a nation that excludes differences at all costs and has one singular identity with maybe some regional differences, but all united under one God because they're scared and that feels safe. And then they hide it behind rhetoric that ignores our country's history by saying, well, our country was founded on a Christian belief system. And look at all these Christian denominations that were allowed to create their own Christian schools at the founding in order to protect their culture from infiltration by outsiders. What an amazing thing to not have outsiders infiltrating your religious beliefs, wouldn't you say? They ignore that we are a country of immigrants, that were escaping persecution, especially religious persecution at the beginning, and doing so by pushing out indigenous people who lived here for millennia and who definitely were not Christians. And they're ignoring that the draw of colonial America was and is the ability to have the freedom to continue living in whatever culture and religion you believe in and practice. They are willfully ignoring that strongly rooted history of religious freedom in favor of a version of history where we were one united Christian nation that has since been denigrated by heathenist, non-God-fearing immigrants, as though there weren't people living in America at its founding that were not Christians. Spoiler alert, there were. There's also a strong rejection of what they call derogatorily anti-racism. They claim, oh no, we're not white Christian nationalists. We don't care about the color of anyone's skin, so long as we all believe in the same God and share the same culture. My neighbor could be black, but as long as we have a shared identity in history and believe in the same God, then we'll live in harmony. All while also saying that the practice of anti-racism is our true identity in America right now, and that anti-racism teaches us to hate ourselves, hate our country, hate our fathers, and hate our history.
Anti-racist. Yep. That's what America is. America is a country that hates itself. Japan doesn't hate itself. Japan isn't losing sleep, burdened by guilt. I feel like we're only, one of the few countries that is ashamed of our past, hates ourselves,
And in all of this, there is a glaring and willful overlooking not only of the indigenous people who lived here long before white immigrants took over and destroyed their way of life, but also a willful overlooking of the whole transatlantic slave trade thing. They are correctly identifying the unique position of America in reckoning with its history and how uncomfortable that is. Because slavery is not a distant thing that no longer impacts us. There are people in this country who have grandfathers whose grandfathers owned humans. And they live amongst other people in this country who have grandfathers whose grandfathers were enslaved by those same people. And instead of recognizing that and saying, hey, that's f***ed up, and acknowledging that there's no way that the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade or the Jim Crow era terrorism that followed can be forgotten in a single generation or two, instead their solution is to ignore it. To say, well, if you want to work towards anti-racism, then you hate your history. If you don't say only good, nice things about our forefathers, then you're a sinner, because the 5th commandment says honor your father. And you hate yourself, and you hate your country. And then they call it revisionist history to acknowledge that, say, Thomas Jefferson owned enslaved humans at the same time he was writing the Declaration of Independence, and that's kind of f***ed up, wouldn't you say? So they're saying honor your forefathers, but also ignore the whole First Amendment thing banning the imposition of state-mandated religion. In fact, the whole Constitution, the rule of law should be based solely on the 10 commandments, but honor your forefathers. Make it make sense. And for me, truly, one of the reasons I harp on right-wing lunatics and study the movements and actions of the right throughout recent history is because I am genuinely trying to wrap my head around how someone can justify why they do what they do and why they believe what they believe. Because I don't think these people are sitting up at night saying, haha, what new evil bad thing can I come up with next? I think they sleep soundly at night in the belief that they are doing the right thing. And I'm sure they think the same thing about me, that I sleep soundly at night despite the fact that I advocate for killing the preborn and forcing kids to turn trans. It's all about the framing. So how has this been framed for them as the right thing to do? And I think it all comes down to the cult-like indoctrination that comes with religiosity at this level. And I don't think that you are a victim of a cult generally if you practice religion, don't get me wrong. But reading, for example, their statement on Christian nationalism and the gospel, the words they use and the way they speak is so foreign to me as an outsider and comes out so naturally to them that they have clearly internalized the teachings that they've gotten from the Bible in a way that completely infects their worldview. For example, the statement on Christian nationalism states,
"We affirm that in addition to possessing the titles of Savior, Messiah, and many others, Jesus, the Son of God, who is truly God, is also the King of all earthly kings, the Lord of all earthly lords, and the lawmaker for all earthly lawmakers. He is the possessor of all authority in heaven and on earth. We affirm that as God, Jesus Christ is preeminent over all creation. Sovereignty rules over all things visible and invisible in heaven, earth, and hell, and ordains all things according to the counsel of his perfect will for the good of those who are in him. We affirm that in his mediatorial rule, Christ rules by his spirit and word through the saints in their earthly authority. We also affirm that as sovereign King of kings, Christ has commanded all civil authorities, Christian and non-Christian alike, to execute his will on the earth to orient humankind toward himself through the moral law, sinners to his Father."
Like, that is a language you cannot speak unless you have been indoctrinated into that culture. I couldn't mimic this if I want.
Yeah, well said. Chatter said something that I will respond to. Male Rights USA on Twitch. You know, struggling with faith is something very common. If you go back to church, I'm reading this in Trump's voice. You know, struggling with faith is very common. If you go back to church and confess, you would be surprised how fast you are accepted. And the idea that people will treat you differently is a lie. You will always be saved. Babe, what about me? What about the things I talk about? What about me sharing my experience being indoctrinated in the evangelical Christian church makes you think I would ever want to go back? What makes you think that I'm not so fucking happy to be here? Come here, Shadow. You want to come say hi? Come on. Come on. This is Shadow. For those of you who don't know, he's going to hang out for a bit. He likes to spend time close, spend time snuggled. And he's probably like, why aren't we skin to skin right now? He's my good boy. He's my good boy.
Wanted to. And that shared language, phrases and words that mean one thing to us but take on whole new meanings to them, is one of many central features of a cult. For me, the thing that is so creepy about this cult-level religious worship is their unflinching conviction that they for sure know the absolute truth. They have no doubt that their interpretation of the Bible is correct, that there is for sure a God, and that the way they are living their life is the one true, correct way to truly live his word. And in fact, if you doubt at all, your entire life is thrown into question, so best not to doubt. Threatening anyone who doubts is another feature of a cult. Anyone who is so certain of anything like that is a major red flag to me. You can't know that. It's culty and weird. And this is how they exist in the cognitive dissonance that they do, because they have been taught not to question anything in the church and to question everything outside the church, which is another core characteristic of a cult. The Bible.
Yes, well said, Legia. I do want to talk about that for a second, because the idea of absolute truth is so bonkers to me, and it's first of all, it's such bullshit, because the fact that we have so many different denominations and interpretations of the Bible goes to show how every human person's like individual experiences and backgrounds and like personhood has a different worldview to bring to the table. Like it's wild to me to think that people believe there is an absolute truth in the Bible when so much of the violence of this world has been done in the name of people's different interpretations of this supposed absolute truth. So like, I don't believe it exists. I don't even care if it exists. It doesn't matter to me if there is such a thing as absolute truth. I don't think there is, but it doesn't matter to me, because like, it's what we do with it that counts, right? And if people just, as she's talking about, use the idea of an absolute truth to consolidate power and influence by saying this is the only right way, this is the only, the Bible is full of lies, only the Quran records everything that is true. Babe, no, it's the same fucking concept. If you're gonna, babe, no. There is no religious text that is more accurate than any other ones. The people who are telling you that any religious text is the only, true divinely inspired text, the people who are telling you that want your money. They want to influence you. They want power from your like political vote. Do you understand? Like, don't believe that shit. Wake up. Wake up. Don't believe that shit. Oh, I wasn't snapping at you, baby. It's okay. No, I can't. It is a cult. It's a fucking cult. I know this because I grew up in it. Bye, Shadow. Ow! Asshole. Hello.
The Bible is the ultimate word of God, so it must be true. We cannot question that. We must follow the word of God faithfully. And therefore, anything that makes me stop and question whether the word of God is maybe, I don't know, a little contradictory at times, maybe feels kind of mean and icky, like, I don't know, stoning women feels harmful, but no, that cannot be, because the word of God is the ultimate word and cannot be questioned. Therefore,
that's what I'm saying.
My worldview has to contort around this one old book. And if you look at their worldview that way, it makes a lot more sense. Of course you think women should be quiet and small, because you're trying to protect them from the public stoning that God requires. Of course men's vote should represent the entire family, because that's what the one interpretation of the Bible that's allowed says. Ignore the protestation of millions of women who want a voice. It cannot be that their desires are right or that the word of God may be wrong. It must only be that they, the women, are misguided sinners who must be led to the one true word of Christ in order to save them from themselves and from the liberal brainwashing they've received as a result of this country straying from the word of God. When you center everything around an unquestioning devotion to a single interpretation of a single book and a single all-knowing Lord and leader, yeah, that level of cult-like worship will allow you to justify all sorts of atrocities as part of your worldview. And it is always coupled with the conclusion that if you do not fall in line, then you are a misguided sinner who has to be either saved or violently punished. This is what Amanda Montell, author of Cultish and host of the podcast Sounds Like a Cult, refers to as a thought-terminating cliche. These cliches are used to dismiss dissent or rationalize flawed reasoning. They are absolute statements that end an argument. What about all the women who want to vote and don't want to be quiet and small? Well, they're all just misguided sinners. But then when you call them out for their own transgressions, like, I don't know, harboring predators in the priesthood or secretly living a double life where they do all the things that they preach are bad, they also get to turn around and say, well, we're all sinners. And the conversation is done. It's convenient, it does away with dissent, and it's a core tool used by cults. And as with any good cult, whether it's your favorite MLM or the Christian Nationalist movement, the people at the top with the most clout who are seen as closest to the leader, in this instance, these Theo bros who lead church congregations and claim to be the final word on the one correct interpretation of the Bible, the ultimate goal is always power and control, thinly veiled behind the lie that they simply are trying to help by spreading the good word. And so, of course, J.D. Vance and his ascendancy to VP GOP candidate alongside Christian nationalist favorite Donald Trump, who sells Bibles despite likely never reading one, who praises Christians despite never acting like one, fits perfectly with the overall plan. Yes, J.D. Vance is a Catholic, not a Protestant like a lot of these guys. Yes, he's married to a Hindu woman and has mixed-race kids, but he says the right dog whistles. And since power is really the end goal here, they're willing to fudge it a little bit. And it's also no wonder that, in pursuit of power and control, there has been a strong overlap found between the Christian nationalist community and neo-Nazis, between Christian nationalists and racists, and between Christian nationalists and the various iterations of the manosphere, intent on exacting revenge on Jews, minorities, and women through power, control, and punishment. Some of these Christian nationalists can claim they don't care about race and only want to protect women from liberal brainwashing, but the overlap in ideology can't be ignored, and the bigotry and hatred that the ideology fosters can't be argued away by simply verbally denying that they stand for that. And while there are vague ties to tech billionaires like Peter Thiel, I don't think that there's a vast conspiracy being fueled with like Koch brothers levels of money underground, but they are following the Koch playbook. It's not enough to stay in their lane. They need to create a multi-pronged approach that includes education through the founding of Christian schools, what can loosely be called scholarship through their small printing presses, public policy touted online through their social media, and now politicians. Indoctrinate, lobby, and legislate. And with J.D. Vance and Trump in the White House, they've got their fingers on the buttons of power necessary to implement their plan for a Christian nation. And their plan for America is clearly laid out in this Christian National Manifesto. It says, "We affirm that the specific short-term priorities of Christian nationalism in the context of the United States are to call our nation in her laws formally to acknowledge the lordship of Christ, to declare solemn days of humility and repentance, to abolish abortion, to define marriage as the covenant union of a biological male and a biological female, to de-weaponize the federal and state bureaucracies which target Christians for censorship and persecution, to secure our borders and defend against foreign invaders, to recapture our national sovereignty from godless global entities who present a grave threat to civilization, like the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, etc., and to exercise restraint in international military intervention and adventurism in overseas democracy building." And that sounds strikingly familiar because William Wolfe helped edit this manifesto, and William Wolfe helped the architect of Project 2025 embed Christian nationalism into as much of that project as possible. It mirrors the same far-right talking points veiled in religious rhetoric that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump harp on about: abortion, censorship, the administrative state, immigrants, globalization, and nationalist protectionism. So do not be mistaken. J.D. Vance and these Theo bros will deny any connection. They'll deny any collusion, and they have a certain level of plausible deniability to do so. But Trump and Vance are actively engaging in dog whistles to signal to these groups that they are on their side. And if Trump gets elected, Project 2025 will hit his desk on day one, and his second in command will have direct links to Christian nationalists who would advocate not only for doing away with the 19th Amendment, but also with the pesky First Amendment too, and actually with the whole damn Constitution. And as imperfect and up for criticism as our forefathers were, I think it's safe to say that it's far more self-loathing and America-hating to say that their Constitution is dead and should be thrown out and replaced with a single interpretation of the Bible and nationwide devotion to a Christian God, and that our diversity in cultures and beliefs is a thing to be ashamed of and done away with. That's not the country I want to live in, and allowing the tyranny of a vocal minority of radical religious cultists dictate how our entire country should be run is contrary to the ethos of what I think a majority of Americans believe in. We can criticize our history and try to right past wrongs while also working towards building a country that is inclusive and feels safe for everyone because we care about our communities and the future that we're building for the next generations. That is not the country we will be building if Trump and Vance win in 2 weeks. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Comment your vote.
Oh my God, and then they won and it's happening. Project 2025 is happening. Oh my God. Christ alive. Not that Christ is alive. Uh-oh. Upset some Christians saying that. Okay, well. Okay, I have a lot to say there. This was a really good video. If you guys aren't familiar with Leisha Miller, she's great. So, okay, where do I start? First of all, I think that she made a really good point about how the Christian nationalism is barely even about what I was taught were the core tenets of Christianity: humility, protecting the poor, protecting people who aren't like you, the Good Samaritan, all of these things. And like, it's so important to me that people can worship however they want, as I talk about a lot. And so that, yes, as difficult as it is for me to say, that does include Christians. And like, the thing is, what I think is going on is not that, I'm not even convinced that the Christian nationalists in power are all that Christian. Not all of them. The large majority of them, maybe. Some of them, maybe. But I think that what is happening is Christian nationalists in power are using the Christian congregation to consolidate their own power and control. I talk about this all of the time, but I guess I'll keep repeating it until we take the religious right seriously, which I know some people are taking it seriously. Oh my gosh, one of my brothers contributed to Project 2025. Honey bunches of oats. I can't. I don't know what I would be able to do by that. Every item I buy is funded by BlackRock. Yeah, no, I was talking about that earlier. Grifters, yes, correct. Evangelical Christianity, I was raised in it. I have firsthand experience in it. It is cult-like. It is disempowering. It keeps people controlled and compliant and complacent and believing that because there is a possibility for a better afterlife, they don't have to worry about anything here on this earth. Someone brought up Pascal's wager earlier in the chat here, which is the idea of like the wager of whether or not God exists. Do you really want to take the risk of him existing, but like emphasis on him, okay? Do you really want to take him as in the pronoun? Do you really want to take the risk of God not existing or God existing but acting as if he doesn't? Like, I'm going to reverse that. What if this is the only life you have? What if you don't have an afterlife? Do you understand? So like, why would you spend your time waiting for something better instead of making this world a better place, which either way would contribute to, you know, supposedly a better afterlife if you're a good, kind, compassionate, tolerant, progressive person, right? If you leave this world better than you found it. But unfortunately, too many evangelical Christians are brainwashed into thinking that because they're going to be raptured away in the fucking second coming of Jesus, or because when they die they're going to go to heaven, they don't have to worry about this. And you're like, oh, Kayse, that's an exaggeration. Like, not all Christians are like that. I know not all Christians are like that. Okay, but the ones around me, and I didn't just go to a tiny ass school with a tiny ass church. It is like perhaps the richest church here. It is the mega church here in the city where I'm at. That's where I went. And they were teaching from the pulpit about the afterlife and about how, you know, we don't have to worry about what the world is going to look like in even just a few hundred years, because the rapture will have already happened by then, because we'll already be gone. Do you understand? Like, this isn't out of left field. This is fucking serious. It's real. It's fear. No, Pascal wager is common sense. Babe, disagree. Strong disagree. We're just going to disagree on that. Okay. Hey, how's it going? Hello. Welcome, chatters. Hello, everyone joining. Christian nationalism, AI. That's what we've been talking about. This proves America needs the Muslim religion. Babe, that's just, no, it doesn't. We don't need any religion. We don't need any organized religion. In fact, so much of the rest of the world has evolved beyond organized religion or a faith-based society. People come to me and they say that I'm just making shit up, or that they're just making shit up. Just making shit up. Who's making shit up? I'm not aware that I have God in my heart because I'm called toward goodness. I'm not aware that I have God in my heart. You caught me. That this whole time I've believed in God this whole time. I'm calling myself an atheist just to fool you guys, just to, you know, attract other atheists so that I can convert them back to theism. That's it. I've been Christian this whole time. Surprise. Someone's calling me and I don't want to talk to them. Well, I always thought the rapture would happen in my lifetime and that the old people might never have to face it. Babe, okay, do you not see how every generation who believes in the rapture believes it's going to happen in their lifetime, and then when it never happens, people don't wake up to the fact that maybe it's never going to happen, and that the belief in the rapture is a tool that is being used to keep you disempowered, to keep you afraid, to keep you compliant so that you can just be waiting for this time when things get better for you instead of making things better for you now. Shouldn't you be a nice, compassionate person anyway, whether it affects an afterlife or not? I personally chose to hope that there is an afterlife of some kind or that you just get reborn, but that's just wishful thinking. Yeah, that's exactly my point, is it shouldn't matter whether or not there is an afterlife. It shouldn't matter whether or not Jesus is coming back. Like, are you being a good steward of this planet? Which is very religious rhetoric, but I'm using it to make a point here. Are you being a tolerant, progressive person and welcoming of people who, I don't know, maybe have different beliefs because they grew up in a different culture. They grew up with a different background. Like, it's insane to me. This idea that we want a unified, homogenous culture, as I was saying earlier, is stupid for so many different reasons. But one of them is like, why do you just want a bunch of carbon copies of yourself? I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I would have so much fun with a carbon copy of myself, okay? But that's just a joke. Calm down. I did stand-up comedy for 7 years. But why don't you want plurality and diversity? It's just fear. And it's not even your fear. It is fear that has been programmed into your mind by these, like we were watching earlier, Palantir and these corporations and these institutions that actively profit from your fear. Do you understand? Like, being afraid of not having an afterlife is used to allow people to make more money. They don't give a fuck if there's an afterlife. They're profiting now by exploiting your fear, by making you afraid. Is that really the vibes we want? Yay, capitalism. You know, fuck that. Yay, consumerism. I'm not available. I'm not available for that. It's wrong. It's immoral. It's stupid. It's ignorant. I'm not available. Fear is very profitable. Correct. I'm not sure if you've explained it, but why are you an ex-Christian? Why did you leave it? Great question. I have like an hour-long YouTube video about why I left Christianity. Which it started just leaving Christianity, and like later on, I just stopped believing in God altogether. It's kind of like a whole process, right? But I left Christianity because it came down to the Bible not making sense in my mind as being the only true word of God, as I was talking about earlier, with so many different interpretations of it and denominations arguing that their way was the only correct and true way. Like, that logic just started breaking down for me. And I also, another element to my personal deconstruction story from evangelical fundamentalist Christianity has to do with gender, with the fact that I was a woman who graduated top of my class, who was out testing every boy in my class throughout, school and high school and all the things. And I was being told to submit to them, submit to these Chads, these Steves. There wasn't a Chad or a Steve I went to high school with, so I'm allowed to say that. But really, it was hard to come to terms with the fact that Christian mythology stopped making sense to me, because I had been so personally identified with it for so long. And that's why I talk about how even Christian nationalism is so powerful in this country, because people personally identify with their religious beliefs, right? Well, then people in power manipulate that to fuse it with political identity. And that, again, that happened in my upbringing. I was raised to not just be a Christian, but to be a conservative, specifically conservative. Like, they are intertwined in that upbringing. So what am I missing? What are you guys talking about? Well, if you have people who are not saved around you, that can be a lot of sadness. Ultimately, we allow people to live however they want. I disagree. I disagree. That's probably a lie that has been told to you so that you stay in the Christian faith, but people outside of the Christian faith were doing fine. We are not sad. We are not broken people, Is it hard to leave Christianity because again, I was personally identified with the religious beliefs I was taught. Is it hard to kind of build up a new version of myself? Yeah, like it is a scary process. It is difficult. But this idea that Christians or ex-Christians are like less happy, or they're not as educated, or they don't, like, those are lies. And you know what's crazy? It's so funny to me when Christians are like, well, you know, you're wrong for this, that, and the other reason. Or, okay, for example, like when they say, well, the Bible is the only religious text that ... And I'll be like, so have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Have you read the Quran? Bhagavad Gita right here, bro. Where is it? Oh, right here, bro. Have you read the Quran? Have you read any other religious text to make the claim that the Bible is the only religious text that ... Have you? That's so interesting, because they always say, no, I haven't. But I just know, I just have faith that only the Bible says X, Y, and Z. Okay, hold on. I'm Christian Catholic and I go to a Catholic school. I don't believe the Bible to be an exact law, but I do think its teachings are helpful and you can use them to live a better life. I mean, yeah, there are nuggets of wisdom in the Bible. I think that's totally valid. I think that's a healthy way, if you're going to read the Bible on a consistent basis, is to approach it with skepticism and sift through what stories and quote unquote morals are being told through the Bible that you actually want to identify with. And that's what's crazy, is like people who claim that there is an absolute morality and that it's only Christian and that it's only biblical, that morality is only Christian or biblical, like they'll then say, but you have to read the Bible and determine for yourself what is or isn't moral, or like the Old Testament isn't moral anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, you're proving right there that morality is relative. Good talk. So yeah, I mean, did I like Sunday church as a kid? I did. Yeah. It was like my only community and for like a large majority of my life. And I'm very fortunate to have a secular, non-religious community around me now. Before you come at me and say I'm missing out, I have just as much community. I have a better community now because they're not trying to enforce any expectations on me. They just love me for who I am. Okay. So this is another great example of how after leaving the church, my life didn't get worse. It got better, babe. It got better. Hello, first-time chatter. Some teachings are helpful, but by no means unique or exceptional. Yeah, exactly. By no means unique or exceptional. By no means. What about the Crusades or Inquisition or colonialism? Looks like Christian... Yeah. Reading the Bible is a fast track to atheism, honestly. That's one of my favorite takes. People are like, how did you become an atheist? And it's like, I read the Bible. I can't. It's funny. It's funny. So funny. Yeah. So there's my take on all of that. I don't know what else I want to cover. Oh, no. I don't know. I might call it on the stream. How are we feeling? We're finally getting into the stuff I wanted to talk about, but I don't know how much longer I can go. All Christians cherry pick because there is so much, it's hard to live it all. Yeah, exactly. Of course Christians cherry pick. Of course they do, because they don't want to, the Old Testament supports and promotes slavery. Of course they don't want to be like, well, yeah, no, some of them do actively say we need to apply all of that in real time in current society, which, is scary in its own right. No one believes in God and Christian who has thoroughly read the Bible. I mean, I'm not going to be the one to disagree with that. Also, one of my favorite things to say about the Bible is that Jesus was just one hell of a partier, water into wine and all. Yeah. Also, Jesus was not very capitalist. I don't care what you guys say. It is so embarrassing for you when you use Jesus as this like savior figure who goes against everything you worship and believe. Like, that's embarrassing for you, bro. Honey bunches of oats. God's rule is whatever they say. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The more I read the Bible, the stronger my atheistic views are. You know what? Props to you for even reading the Bible. I haven't cracked open my Bible in like 12 years. If that. Maybe longer. And I I do want to read it again, just for like research purposes and to check it out. But I just have so much, obviously, like baggage tied into it, and I have to decide. I have to come to it with like a strategic point of view if I'm going to do that. The Old Testament is also true. It was just written before Jesus died, so a lot of duties were fulfilled with Jesus Christ. I'm not, babe, no. Let's do a one story a day on stream from the Bible. Man, I don't know. It would be a lot for me to open the Bible again. Like, that would take a lot of mental prep. You guys think I'm angry now. You guys think I go on rants now. I will be unstoppable if we open the Bible and talk about it on stream. I'll probably get myself in trouble and be a little too hateful towards everyday Christians, which, as you know, I try very hard to separate the ideology from the people. But man, yeah, I would be so cranky if I reading the Bible. That'd be so funny because I do like morning streams, and I like if I started starting my days again reading the Bible again like I used to back in the day, that would just set me up to be pissed all day. That's so funny. That's a terrifying thought. I don't know, maybe I'll get to the point where I really want to dive back in and kind of start debunking it. But also there's a lot of content on the internet, like in, like deconstruction or ex-Christian kind of content creation that focuses on debunking the Bible. And that's not like really my style because I don't know. It's just not something that I really feel like I need to do. I'm more interested in how... Hi, baby. Hi. I'm more interested in how like Christian ideology is affecting our culture, is affecting our worldview. Like I consider myself more of like a cultural commentator than like a myth buster of the Bible. But I don't know. That would be so funny. Maybe I'll start doing it on Sundays. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun if I started reading the Bible on Sundays with you guys? That's so funny. It was a Bible study that caused me to start questioning my brainwashing. I totally agree with you. Now I read the Bible to undo the false education I was taught to believe. Well said. That's a great way to go about it. I respect that so hard. Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like if I start reading the Bible on stream, it's just gonna confirm that I'm 100% on the right track. So Male Rights USA, who suggested that we do a Bible story a day, like, I mean, it's not gonna go in your favor. It's not. What's so funny is like how I've thought about. I would love to like start. So at first when I started making content and live streaming, I was very much like, I want to stay out of debate culture. Like, I don't want to be, with, the toxic debate bro culture and all that stuff. But now, like, the more I've kind of like gotten the hang of streaming and my like messaging, I am starting to wonder. I think it'd be cool to like be to be invited to debate or have conversations about some of the stuff that I talk about, like Christian nationalism, atheism, deconstruction, anti-capitalism, whatever. And I have like, it's funny to imagine that. And if I were like debating a Christian and they like laid out all of these things in the Bible which has literally happened in this stream, I make very clear that using biblical scripture to prove something to me falls flat because I don't believe that it is a valuable source for a logical argument in any sense of the matter. But then people will still quote scripture at me, biblical scripture at me, as if I fucking care. And I think it would be funny if that happened like in real time in a debate of some nature. And I was just like, you know what? You're right. I can't believe this whole time I was wrong. Oh my gosh, I'm a Christian again. Praise Jesus. Like, how funny would that be? I just can't. I can't. You guys, it's insane. The Bible is insane. Christianity is insane. It's just insane. I don't agree with you, but you're a good streamer. That's really sweet. Like, good at streaming. That's really sweet. I really appreciate that. I try really hard. I think I have I've worked really hard on my performance skills as a stand-up comedian. I try to make it lighthearted. I try to keep it real with you guys. But I also have this background and I have this education that honestly, like, because I was raised so deeply in fundamentalist evangelical Christianity, like, because I have this extensive biblical background, I'm kind of glad it's not going to waste, because when I first left the Christian faith, I was so mad that I'd just spent my entire fucking life learning about Christian mythology, and I was so academically advanced just because academics suits my specific kind of intelligence. I know there are a million different kinds of intelligences, and being a good test taker does not intelligence make. Okay, I recognize that, but I happen to be a good test taker, and I happen to be really academically studious. And I'm always pissed when I look back, because I'm like, I could have been some kind of prodigy. I could have spent all of that time and energy learning about physics or history or whatever instead of the Bible. And so it is kind of comforting to know that at least I am kind of using that background for a more productive way to live, and a different kind of career for sure than I expected. It's so funny because when I was still an evangelical Christian, I wanted to be doing stuff like this for Christianity. I wanted to be on a stage, not quite as a pastor, but as I had this fantasy of becoming a historian who proved the validity of the Bible. I really wanted to. I was like, because, growing up in the evangelical Christian church, I would look at the people who had the most power in my environment, the people who had the most success, and they were all men who were leaders of the church. And I was like, oh, so that's how you succeed. That's what success looks like, is being on a stage and being respected like that. And so, like, in my little, capitalist Christian mindset, I really wanted to be on a stage being respected like that, because that's what success looks like to me. Okay. And so it's just funny because, and so that might have been one of the reasons I took biblical studies so seriously growing up. And it's ridiculous now when Christians will hop in my comment section, or they'll, hop on a live stream and say, well, then if you left the Christian church, obviously you never studied the Bible correctly. You never studied what Jesus actually was talking about. Like, honey bunches of oats. That's all I did. That is all I did. Your argument is unfounded. But I understand that when you come at me and say I wasn't the right kind of Christian, or I wasn't the right denomination, or I wasn't Catholic enough or Protestant enough or what the fuck ever, I understand that when you say that, you're saying it because you are afraid that your personal belief system is invalid. You are afraid that the fact that I was very well educated in the Christian doctrine and then subsequently left because it broke down logically for me, and the fact that I have a fulfilling, community-filled, meaning-making, fulfilling intellectual pursuit of a life outside of Christianity, I understand that you're afraid that you might be wrong, or that you might not be living your best life like I am. I get that, but it is incorrect to assume that I didn't have enough of a biblical education. It's honestly so laughable. It is honestly so laughable. That is all I had. That's all I had. That is all I had. But obviously I'm super chill about it. Like, obviously I'm like not angry at all. What are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking about while I'm talking? You are the rare YouTuber that interacts with your audience, even in the comments, and you're fun and funny, and I agree with you. Oh my God. That's so sweet. Thank you. The thing is, you have already been saved. I think you were just mad at the Lord, but one day it will pass. Here we go. Yeah, you know what? You're right. This whole time I've been a Christian. This whole time. I love Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is my Lord. You know what I love? I love worshiping men. I love worshiping masculinity. That's my favorite thing. He, him pronouns supremacy. Love. Obsessed. Vibe. That's me. The whole time. I've been wrong this whole time. Well said. That's great. That's fucking great. So I don't worship the devil as a leftist. What if I'm the devil? Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about the fact that I might be Satan? Here to influence you to leave your Christian faith? Because I'm so scary. I'm so scary. Actually, I know men are scared of me. Calm down. I'm not saying... I'm saying that in the sense of... My friends have told me that I can come across intense, which, like, that's sort of left field. What are you talking about? Me? Intense? I don't know what you mean. When you quit lying to yourself and read the Bible, you will deconvert. That's what I'm saying, bro. Bruh. Yeah, most pastors get spoon-fed their lessons they give in church. Yes, they write a bit themselves. I agree with that, actually. You need to read James Billington's book, Fire in the Minds of Men, which explains the roots of atheism and the revolutionary spirit against God and nature. That's what's so annoying about Christians. They think they know what you're thinking better than you do. Delusional thinking, to say the least. Yeah. That's exactly right. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. This is just the nature of it. You know, this is what I talk about on my stream. So if you're going to show up and say, and, you know, just get ready to talk with an ex-Christian. Like, I'm not going back. As much as you want me to as much as Christians want me to reconvert, to validate their own belief system, to make them feel a little bit less afraid, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. In fact, if you guys ever see me, like, come online and say, hey, I'm a Christian again, I'm telling you right now, no matter how far my, you know, content creation career goes, my live streaming career goes, even if I get, I'm gonna be like such a manifestation girly here. When I get 1 million subscribers on YouTube, bring it into the now. When I get 1 million subscribers on YouTube, if I ever come on and I'm like, hey, I'm Christian again, I'm telling you guys right now that it is a farce, and that I'm doing some kind of experiment to see how people react. I'm telling you right now. IDK, how I found your live, but I'm glad I did, because you fine as fuck. You guys are so funny. Oh my god, boys are so funny. Thank you, that's very sweet. Feel free to subscribe, you know, like, if you want to support, if you want to see more of me. Do you know what I mean? It's fine. That's so funny. You guys are so funny. I love you guys so much. I can't. What would I do without you? I can't imagine life before streaming. If I get 1 million subscribers, praise God, I would so. You know what? I'll reconvert for 1 week if I get 1 million. When I get 1 million subscribers on YouTube, okay, I will reconvert for 1 week. How much fun would that be? That would be so much fun. Actually, atheism is older than Christianity. Well said. Correct. Yes. Hello. Thank you for the subscription. That's hilarious. Either that, or it could be a successful scam. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, know that if I ever talk about reconverting, it's some kind of like intentional grift to see how I can sway the masses. But then, of course, I would come out later and be like, okay, guys, so this was a thought experiment. Let's work on 5K for now. 5K YouTube subscribers. Yeah. No. That would be great. My goal is to hit 5K by the end of this month. Can we do it? Can we do it, you guys? Can we get 5K YouTube subscribers? How far away are we? Let's see how far away we are. You guys, my growth on YouTube has actually been pretty fucking fast. I have a 30% week to week growth rate. And like whenever I like enter my analytics into ChatGPT or any kind of like program or whatever, it's a really high growth rate. People, and that's not to say that I'm super special or whatever. I think it's because what I talk about is really resonating with people. What I talk about really matters to you guys. Because again, you know, the rise of the religious right is serious. I stress so much that real Christians would never be mad at you for the lapse. Okay, well, I'm not asking them to be mad at me. That's fine. I think you do not want to go back because you feel guilty about leaving. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, I have 4,683 total subscribers on YouTube. So I just need 317 by May 1st, and I would hit my goal. That would be great. Oh, thank you for subscribing. That's super sweet. We just like to trigger you and watch you. Yeah. That's fine. I'm totally okay with that. That's fine. You just liked also. Thank you guys. You're being so supportive. I'm glad we get to spend our mornings like this. I can't wait to continue spending mornings like this. It's exciting. This is real stuff. Sadly, I can't get any of my friends or family to subscribe because they're all right-wing Christians. Bro, same. Not my friends, but my family. Same. I get it. Who is texting me? That's so embarrassing for them. I do not like to text. Okay, stop texting me. Okay. All right, you guys. I think I am going to go start my day. This is fun. This has been fun. This has been very fun. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are really sweet. I have 9 subscribers on Twitch. Crazy. Thank you. That's so sweet. And we're going to keep growing. We're going to keep, evolving. This has been awesome. I'm glad we talked about really cool stuff today. I haven't decided what I want to talk about tomorrow. I am going to start, because I need help trying to figure out what I want to talk about every day. So I am going to start doing members only polls in my Discord so that you guys can help me decide what to talk about every day. So, consider that if you want to join that membership or join that subscription. And yeah, I appreciate all of you. I would love to see you in my Discord. I am going to kind of work on that today to get it kind of into the best shape so that we can have a community of free thinkers and free spirits in the Kayse and Friends Discord. A couple of the channels are open to everyone, but again, for the polls about what to talk about, the monthly book club that I'm starting in May, and some more fun stuff, those are hidden behind the $4.99 a month subscription on either YouTube or Twitch. So sign up there. Let me know what you guys thought. Thank you so much for being here. I super appreciate it. Discord is a platform for communities. I've linked it in my on my YouTube, on my website, all of the things. If you want to check it out there and kind of navigate and see if it kind of suits your style. It's just a place for us all to keep in touch, even when I'm off stream. Okay, yeah, with that, we're going to let it go. Yeah, we're going to let it go today. I might hop on later today. I haven't decided. I have committed to streaming every day at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, but I also might hop on at other times, okay? Because I have free will, and so do you. So I'd love to see you there. Do you know what I mean? Let's go, let's grow, let's thrive, let's evolve. Let's do it. I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you soon. I would love to see you in the Discord. I would love to see you anywhere. Be safe, make choices, live your life.